we present to you an ajuba. You know, this is one set of people who are so dedicated, so passionate, and so committed that even before I could invite everybody else and them on stage, they are here. And I think now that we have a full house, again, another round of applause. They really deserve this. Okay, so let me just give a quick introduction about this session. It is Trick or Treat, how to deal with investigation agencies and how to deal with investigations on crypto assets. And we have here with us our moderator, Mr. Manvendra Mishra, partner Khaitan and Company, Mr. Ashish Chandra, General Counsel, CoinSwitch Kuber, Kaizad Hazari, President and Global General Counsel, Glenmark Pharmaceuticals Limited, Anand Vardhan, President, Legal, Piramal Capital and Housing Finance, Mr. Zameer Nathani, Senior Vice President and General Counsel, UFO Moviez, and last but not the least, Mr. Pathik Arora, General Counsel, Senvion Wind Technology Private Limited, Senvion, India. So without any further ado, the stage is yours, the panel is yours, please go ahead. And we have 40 minutes max to close the entire conversation. Thank you.
See, when two of your keynote speakers speak about the topic and take 40 minutes, and you expect the panel to do justice to the same topic in 40 minutes, clearly something is amiss. But that's...
We know you're very much equipped to do that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, but for understanding.
I mean, honestly, you have a set of speakers here who I personally would prefer to switch the camera off and hear exactly what goes down when we talk about law enforcement agencies. Let's not get misled by the title when I say trick or treat. It's about how in-house counsels and lawyers treat law enforcement agencies and not the other way around. Contrary to popular belief, I think the law enforcement agencies today are very well equipped. They know their stuff. They will ask you for exact IP addresses. They'll talk to you about lockbit ransomware. They will tell you which money has gone where. And it then comes down to the lawyers that, do we do a data dump on them? Like, 10,000 page de dete hain, let them find it. Or do you actually go and give them drip feed information one by one? But just to very quickly set the tone, see earlier what you heard Amit Desai, you heard Anand, and they were pointing out to us what white collar crime used to be and the changing dynamic. I think one very important aspect which people have not caught on to so much is earlier, if you did a fraud, you will go to either an economist office wing. If you did a banking fraud or a bribery, you will go to CBI. Money laundering used to be obviously dependent. Today, one banking fraud matter where let's say some phishing has happened will go to cyber cell first, then to CBI, banking supervision fraud, from there to ED, and once these three have had their fun to SFIO, and in between, if you are a listed company, you have to do your SEBI reporting. If you have a set of really prudent independent directors, there will be account audit committee which will then want to do a reporting. So what has really changed in the dynamics is you don't look at an offense or a white collar incident in isolation anymore. Your defense strategy, your next steps has to depend on where all this can go. How do you restrict the damage? How do you restrict the flow? And it all starts from the very first thing. So what do you do? What do you do when you get a summons, when you know that, okay, something has gone wrong? I think the first person in this regard has to be Ashish, given his multidisciplinary, multi-company roles where he's burnt his hand and done fire damage across board. Ashish, you've been in Netflix, you've been in CoinSwitch, you've been with WhatsApp, you've seen everything that could possibly go wrong. As a general counsel, what's your first reaction when there's a law enforcement agency request? We know of places where the promoter calls and said, quashing dal do, ABA file kar do. But as a general counsel, how do you step in? What do you do to ring fence this issue?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that you need to understand the fabric of your company and the management, right? You need to first have your own belief and conviction that you're working with good people and you're solving some bona fide problem of the world and you're doing the business with right kind of ethics and moral. Law will always, catch up. So I think if you feel convicted and convinced about the people who you're working with and the businesses which you are supporting, and then you understand the basic fabric of the company. The second part is that, law enforcement agencies are there for a particular purpose, right? And you have human beings on the other side of the table. So it's just basically trying to understand their motivation. I think we just color them with that कि अगर कोई पुलिस वाला आ गया, ED आ गया है तो भाई उसको पैसे खिलाने हैं, right? So I think the first thing is that we need to get out of that particular mindset, right? They have a job to do and they have a right job to do, right? If they are not policing us, if they are not asking us difficult question, if they are not putting us under fire, the industry will not develop. Everybody will be a thief, right? Because they will not be able to catch the thief. So you have to understand that the other person is a human being, right? It's a human to human interaction. They have their own KRAs, they have their own objective, they have their own motivation. Sometimes there may be some top down issues, sometimes there may be some ego issues, sometimes there may be curiosity. So that is 2. 3 is that I think how you interpret a particular situation decides how you react to it, right? One way to interpret a law enforcement का visit is that कि आपकी फट गई, right? Oh my God, this is the worst thing which could happen in my company, in my career. No, this is, there is a law. You are here to comply with the law. Somebody is here to ensure that you are complying in the right spirit or not, right? If you have built your ecosystem right, if you have built your records right, if you believe that you have consulted with lawyers to build your ecosystem, why you are afraid, right? So just change the interpretation of the situation, right? Not only for yourself, but also of your management, of your CEOs, CFOs, CXOs and board, right? If you change the interpretation, 99.9% your problem is solved, right? And last bit is that, right? And I'm not here to share any gyan because I'm only sharing that how I have built, like I have handled all these things. We have this 100 number of police in US. We have 911. So as a GC of disruptive technologies, or maybe any company, it's not only about the technology, any company, you need to have your 100 number. You need to have your 911. I have my own 911, which basically comprise not only of lawyers but plenty of other people, right? Which could also include PR agencies. You need to have your own relationship with the journalist, right? You need to have on a relationship with some sort of influencers, blog writers, editors. This is just one part of the 911. So build your 911, right? I have my own 911 right from last 20 years. And so have your 911, any crisis, pick up the phone, they'll help you. So these are the 4 pieces how I've helped to make sure the company stay afloat.
Says the man who knows it all, and we obviously aspire to be on that list. But I think what I really take away from that is also the acceptance. There was a point of time where a law enforcement request summons was a stigma. Like you get a summons under 91 for documents, they will say, okay, send the GC, send the legal team. But we have seen situations where you've got a 160 summons for witness statement, and there also someone insists, okay, send X person. Basic concepts to the fact that a witness summons cannot be transferred to another. Don't try and block something which otherwise you can't delay. I think that level of acceptance is very critical. The ED courts in Bombay, the joke today is that agar summons nahi hai, to you are not worth it. It's actually the thing that you hear in every ED court today. But let me ask Kaizad, do you think it's important to have some sort of an USP, some sort of a protocol, that what do you do? Like I said, you got a summons, very basic, most starting point. So what do you do? Like you got a summon, what would you recommend your company to treat it as?
No, absolutely. I think I would completely agree with what Ashish has said. And I think it's important that the USP is all got to do with the kind of confidence that, immediately as a summons is received by the company, generally the organizations get into a kind of a paranoia situation. They get into a frenzy. They are all scared. They don't know there's something wrong that has happened. So I think as a GC, it's important first and foremost to just take all the pieces together, develop that confidence, get the core team in action, and then look at what exactly is the request. Many a times we straight away jump into a firefighting situation without really understanding. It could be an innocuous summons as a witness for something which is very small, and they have called for that information, or it could be a very serious thing. So understanding the demand, understanding the request is very critical. and then start working on collation of that request. And at the same time, I think it's important to, if possible, to pick up the phone or to go and meet up the regulator, meet up the guy who has made that demand, speak to him, understand it more. The minute you start dialogue with the authorities, I think a lot more clarity you will get. If the timelines are very, very, aggressive and you are not able to meet those timelines, then certainly make a request of extending the timeline. Take time. I think communicate key. You start communicating with the authorities, it is very critical. They will give you time, and it will also give you time to prepare, collate the information, also build the team within, because what you give today, I think it will always remain in record over there, and you don't know then it will go to which authorities, tax authorities, GST, so on and so forth. So I think it's very critical first to in-house look at what is the request, how prepared are you to provide that information, whether there are gaps or there are no gaps, and then accordingly then navigate the problem.
Absolutely, no. Very, very important thing. What documents do you give? The people who are giving the documents, have they thoroughly scrutinized it? Have your lawyers scrutinized it? Do you need to do an internal forensics before you give this out? Because your back-end books may not match. I think these are very, very important points which really need to be focused on at a stage when you receive a summons today. But let's also talk about a situation where you find out that there is an FIR against you from the newspapers. And we have a champion on with us who used to deal with page 3 issues. So, Zameer, how different is your approach in a situation where instead of, the usual policy, suddenly you found out that remote part of India, someone did like the kissing scene and there's an FIR pending for obscenity against the company?
So I had my good fortunes during Balaji Telefilms Ekta Kapoor when Dirty Picture was also released. And the lawyers really had field day on that. Second, yes, what you hear about Ekta Kapoor now recently, a few days back, you saw similar warrants was issued against Ekta many years ago when I was head legal for the company. And I have to an extent represented her as a power of attorney holder also in the court. So I had my page 3 days, but they were quite serious. What I have experienced on the entertainment side of it, coming from the experience of either working in Reliance, where if you see an issue of Gramecraft, which has recently come up where GST authorities have issued a notice for 21,000 crores. I was in a similar situation in 2008, where it was VAT authority, all right? So I see this problem now again repeating from the perspective, and at that point of time, many collector summons were issued to us to make a representation, otherwise they would levy fine, to an extent that we defended it to the best of our ability with senior counsels like Mr. Hari Salve and all. And to the extent where the authority came and said that, at least admit an amount of 27,000 rupees so that, we can then consider this as a precedent and go behind all other guys, So this was my experience. So you have to understand where they are coming from. Number one, whether it's the demand of the exchequer where they've decided that, certain amount of revenue is not getting into the stream by reason of some default. Number two, some illegality is happening. For example, you have been seeing during IPL the betting ads which were coming up, all right? And now government has come out few days back with a regulation saying that, you can't portray this. If you look to that particular website of this betting company which was also displayed during IPL, if you go to Wikipedia, you'll find out there is a bankruptcy case which has been filed by them. The Russian authorities are looking out for the promoters of this company for a serious crime. All right, so that was an extent. Unfortunately, some company approached us with an MOU and then we did investigation to find out this. Coming on the Balaji side of it, the law enforcement agency consequences which we felt was when one of the finance guys in a company had employed ghost employees. If you Google it now also, you'll get it. There were some employees who are working in the company but not on the payroll of the company. All right. So we investigated, we found a fraud, etc., etc. This guy went ahead and complained to income tax that I was revealing some details about it, and therefore, the company has come behind me. FIR, etc., was also registered against this employee. but income tax still raided the premises. So that's the consequences which happen. During my next corporate experience, we had this infamous case of Chidambaram getting arrested, and many of the corporates were called upon by the ED branch in Delhi for examination of various transactions or anything you have dealt with. I think that's where the strategy of either the submission of the voluminous document, which sometimes we also do it in CCI, when we submit huge amount of documents, from the perspective that we try to justify saying that, this is completely transparent, I rely on you. Or the strategy is that you go by the drip mechanism, where you feed in information and try to engage where are we heading and what are the preemptive steps I need to take. So that was my experience on the Raven side of it. In UFO movies, what I could always say to you is that while you gave your first example that today, when any authorities like income tax or any other authorities which come to your doorstep and they circulate your report, it's also the vice versa. When SEBI is also investigating your company and you give them a report, they also circulate to the respective authorities. So what we are now seeing in the Army or Navy or Air Force, the theater band which we have been listening, this is what has also been created at a government level when it comes to exchange of information, which was previously lacking. So that's my experience from Reliance, Balaji and other corporates.
Thank you, thank you. Clearly something.
On this, if I can simply touch upon and supplement what Zameer was saying. On a lighter note, taking from page 3 to business page, honestly, if I can say within these 4 walls, there's some sort of a lobby. So if you're up for a big acquisition, depending upon the competitor who's there against you, or maybe someone who's trying to extract something out of, the prospective transaction, the kind of modus operandi that you will see, the way 156.3 is abused, the kind of leave and license agreement will be created just to, establish their jurisdiction, wherever they have got this comfort. Ex parte, order will be passed. Next day, FIR will be, registered. Obviously, once the FIR is registered, obviously you have no other choice, left but to run the legal process. And that's what, when Anand bhai was saying, it's very, very, very important, to have a strong informal network. I think Ashish also touched upon that. So just be proactive when something in the environment or around the jurisdiction, something is happening, you should get to know, because it's always better to be proactive. Be aware that something is happening, you can take some proactive steps and work towards that, because these days filing an FIR, it has become a whatever term that you want to use. We have a few funds, obviously in a fund is like private equity fund. The IRR has not been made in that particular fund for whatever reasons and business reasons. Somebody will go to a police station, depending upon their comfort, they get the FIR registered, and then you are up for. So I thought I'll just.
I incidentally would have come back to you to ask about what happens when you get such legacy litigations or legacy investigations, when you've done a merger or you've done a transaction where you are consciously onboarding certain investigations, knowing fully well what is the financial consideration for it.
So honestly, with regard to such a question now through IBC, if at least you are not part of those criminal liabilities that is attached with it, but the legal process continues. So this entire coordination with the authorities, obviously you have to make appearances, you have to submit all documents, you have to provide all those evidences. It's also important from your in the sense from branding and other perspective, ring fencing perspective as well. So honestly it's a headache. It's a nuisance, but we have to live with it. It's a continuing and rather unending process that, to be very honest, in one of the acquisitions that we have done now, there is a separate team only dealing with all these authorities. So we have no other choice but to do that. Thanks.
We won't name it, but we all know. But yeah, I think the important part is that with your FIU, Financial Intelligence Unit, I don't know how many of you have dealt with them. They have not much powers, but if you want any clearance and if you are not FIU compliant, you can't do an ODI investment today. You won't be able to send your money out under the FEMA routes, because it will come in as not just a red flag, it's actually a reportable issue, because they say you not reported this STR. Same with ED. ED has sent out 400 summons in the last 2 months for input-output credit mismanagement, IRM, ORMs. So it's while there are solutions, it's becoming increasingly difficult to be in a position of leadership, being able to take calls. And I think Pathik, being the CS and the star that you are on this domain, how do you sort of advise your management? What steps do you take to ring fence your board, your audit committees in these kind of situations in general?
I think it's while it may very it may differ for everyone, and people may have their own perspectives to it. I think, but as a thumb rule, there are a few things that may cut across all the entire industry and all corporates, is to really have a line between, one is, of course, to have a clear line between your audit committee and board. That becomes very important. I mean, when you are really ring fencing the board, so to say, you really need to have that line between the audit committee and board, and your audit committee should really be independent in its functions. So to say, you need to identify and have your compliance process, compliance mechanisms completely laid out. And I'm talking from a pure CS perspective right now. Have your compliance mechanisms clearly laid out. Have your code of conduct policies clearly laid out. Have a clear mechanism to have your systems audited. Have your audit report. Internal audits, external audits. Have your reports submitted to the audit committee before it goes to the board. Have representations before the audit committee, so that all you have done your checks and balances and your checklists complied with. In fact, these days compliance management systems also have become so robust that compliance management systems themselves give you the compliance certificates, which ultimately are submitted to the board through the CEOs or general counsels. So one bit is that on how to really ring fence your board from the day-to-day challenges that may come across. Second is, I think, as my co-panelists also say, that it is also about training the board, training your senior management, training the board on how to deal with investigations or summons, or when they really come through, or even a notice for that matter to start with. Fortunately for lawyers, but not so fortunate sometimes for the organizations, that most of your board of directors are not lawyers. And that is why you and your role becomes even more important, and sometimes your jobs as well, is that you got to train them to not get anxious. As Ashish rightly said, it is about the genesis. It's about the principle or the ethos of the organization, that you really believe in, that you have not done anything wrong. And if you have that belief in you, as board, as the directors, as the management, or whosoever against whom the notice of the summon has come in, then you don't need to get anxious about. You assist or cooperate with the investigation, be there, and be confident about what you're doing, so that your statement is not changing every day when you're making statements before various authorities. And also, more importantly, don't just start making panic calls to, sometimes it can really backfire. I think those are real, small mantras to stay afloat and stay above the investigations.
And thankfully now, with the amendment to the Prevention of Corruption Act, the mantras have become the legal defense. So, I'm sure most of you are aware that third-party bribery is now an offense under the Indian law. And companies can be roped in for service providers, basic employees like drivers, providing bribe to a toll gate to escape. So, and like Pathik mentioned, one of the defenses is to make sure that you have a policy, make sure that the training happens. But I think let's go to a slightly controversial topic, since we've all been talking about good things. Internal investigations. We all know that our companies, as much as we try, are not 100% proof. There will be some employee who's taking a cutback. There may be an employee who's leaking data. There may be a third-party vendor who somehow had access to your systems and has been able to cause certain damage, reputational or legal or financial. In this kind of a situation, I would want to hear all of your thoughts on 2 points. One, to report, to not report, to prosecute, to not prosecute, and what kind of steps would you take to make sure that if something like this happens, it doesn't blow up in future in your face? Ashish, should we start with you?
Well, I think important part is that take time to hire right people. Don't wait to fire wrong people, right? So I think this is all starts with the genesis in terms, because it's all people behavior. So take time to hire, good people. Take time to hire, right vendors. But having said that, you should also build your strong systems to ensure that these things are mitigated. And if it is found mostly by internal investigation or whistleblowing, it's a very tricky situation. I think if I'm no longer expert in Companies Act, but I think there is a provision under Companies Act that if there is a fraud which is detected is more than 1 crore or 2 crore, there is an obligation on the board or auditor to report it to SFIO. आज की डेट में 1 crore 2 crore का fraud क्या होता है? I'm sure that 99% companies which are active companies would have these instances. So we know for sure, interpreting the data, that most of these frauds are not reported. Ideally, they should have been reported, right? Maybe because SFIO is not very active, and I think the money amount is so less that people don't want to really invite trouble. Which to report, which not to report, I think it all depends upon facts and circumstances about company, what they care, what they don't care. So it's a very fine balance which a general counsel has to take along with the management. Some people could be very conservative and they may want to put their foot down. I have seen instances wherein some very conservative senior lawyers said that कि नहीं report करोगे तो मैं company छोड़ के जा रहा हूँ. ठीक है, चले जा भैया, बहुत आ जाएंगे. So, you have to be a bit practical. You have to be thoughtful. Yes, you also need to understand the consequences of not reporting. Make sure that whoever in the management team is taking the decision of not reporting, they're aware of consequences. And don't scare them with the consequences. Say कि यार ये हो सकता है, लेकिन इसको करने के लिए ये हमारे defenses हैं. Let's do it in this way. So that way, you are giving a practical advice. You're not doing a heinous crime. Everything in the world, if you don't do, is not a crime. So that's how I think the decision has to be taken. But important part is that, take time to hire right people. Don't waste time to fire wrong people.
Anand, can we quickly check with you on just a follow-up? We all know the use of privilege under Indian law. Unlike UK, we have much better privilege laws in India. And more often than not, I think we are seeing now that law firms are being appointed before you go to the forensic, so that the report which comes, you don't know what may come out. But taking a leap out of what Ashish just said, how do you dictate a situation where there's a need for an internal investigation? But at the same time, how do you deal with if the report that comes out is not favorable?
So honestly, I'll take it two ways. First of all, I think as general counsel or rather as internal legal team, more than the legal support, when the summons or those kind of notices come, I think they also look for emotional support from the legal team, because notices will come in the name of MD, chairman, CFO, and they're in panic mode, right? Honestly, they feel that I'll give it to the legal team, they'll take care of it. they look for it, so they want to hear those good words from your mouth. So just to take it forward, what Ashish was saying, I think more than the individual part of this kind of thing that happens, sometimes even the systematic one. I think that's where during the course of the investigation, it's very, very important to have your own internal review and assessment. So while as a company, you may feel that I've got all the systems and everything in place because my audit and everything has tick date. And that's where the coordination with those investigation agencies is very, very, very important. That some of those areas of concerns or other potential threat that that may have been highlighted with them. It's very, very important to take care of those proactively, because you may feel that I'm up to 100 out of 100 on check the box kind of things, but sometimes these regulators, as I think you started saying that they're smarter than us. They know each and everything. They can actually, when they're pointing out 10 things, 8 out of them, there are 10 things, you can simply not ignore it. You have to take all those proactive steps to rectify that.
I just want to add one thing. It's very important that at the board level and at a CEO level, how they are building the top level team. And I can't name a company, but I know a fairly large e-commerce company which was quite good, but it got busted because one person was there. that person was reporting to the board, okay, non-founder person, a professional person, let's say for example CFO, right? The general counsel was reporting to CFO, the internal audit was reporting to CFO, the controller was reporting to CFO, the HR, not the HR but the admin HR was reporting to CFO, right? You have a key man risk, right? Now if that key man is an honest guy, ethical guy, great client, you win. But if that key man has some area of doubt, it will collapse. Because who are the whistleblower? Who get to know the shits, right? It's legal team, internal control team, financial controller, admin, whoever, right? They want to tell it to the CEO or to management. They get stuck with the wall, right? So I have few founders, friends who have built their companies. My first advice to them is that there are 2-3 functions. Just keep them reporting to you directly. If you don't do that, no मेरे पास time नहीं है, मेरे को building बनानी है, मेरे को मतलब अपना business बनाना है, 2 साल के बाद तेरा business ठप हो जाएगा because ये चीजें होंगी. I think it all starts from how you are building that hierarchy that way.
Great insight. Absolutely great insight on that. Kaizad, can I check with you very quickly? See, we've talking about what happens at, let's say, a high level stuff, right? But what about an industry where the last mile person is really going and doing something which you guys really don't have a control over, but is at the end of the day there with the company? Let's say for a sales target reason or whatever, he has a friend to whom he believes, chalo, isko sales order, let's give him 2x sales order this time, or we give this guy 2 mobile phones for prescribing. In these kind of situations, how do you think as a company on the technical side you deal with such issue?
You mean to say issues relating to any kind of improper behavior?
Improper behavior, gifting. I mean, in India, it's a Diwali, right? 50,000 ke patake de do. Isko mithai ka, like, let's send him a kilo. I mean, not every incident is culturally seen as a bribery in India or a gratification. So, while we have our gifting policies, while we have the laws, how do you deal with these kind of issues in a company? Like, what's your view personally?
See, realistically, I can talk about theory and I can give you gyan on that, but realistically, the guy at the lowest level is exposed. He is not aware what he is actually getting into. If he's undertaking certain activities, which he has been asked to carry out certain activities, but in his naiveness, he is going ahead and carrying out those activities. He is exposed to some extent. And unfortunately, that's the reality, that if there is an issue tomorrow, he will be the scapegoat. That's the sad part of it. But on a principle basis, I think from an organizational standpoint, you have to look at your internal processes and controls and how you have cascaded the training down right up to his level. I think to that, if that is achieved, at least to some extent, you have provided him the means, the training, so that he will not undertake those activities. So I think there is a lot of exposure there, and particularly in the pharma industry, where there is so much of publicity. You hear about the nexus between the HCPs, the healthcare practitioners, and the pharmaceutical company, where you are paying gifts and vouchers and providing so many benefits to the healthcare practitioner with the intent that he will prescribe your products. There is clearly a violation on that front, and there are these codes which are existing today under the UCPMP code and pharmaceutical code and so on and so forth, but those are not really having the teeth to go after the pharmaceutical companies. And you see there is a PIL today even pending before the Supreme Court, where Justice Chandra is also looking at it, and he was told that during the time when he was also having COVID, he had taken a particular medicine, and that medicine is manufacturer have come under scrutiny today for paying bribes, so on and so forth. So I think it's a very delicate balance which has to be played, and I think our system today has not evolved to the level of understanding as to if you have been given a target of 2x, you have to catch hold of the person who is putting that kind of an unrealistic target, instead of just going after the last mile guy.
Absolutely. I think bang on point there. Zameer, can we quickly touch upon something that was discussed earlier? I've been given a note. Could have been a lot nicer things, but it says a wrap up soon in 5 minutes. But yeah. So on the we heard about we heard about social media being used as a tool, in criminal cases this time. I mean, Chuck, let's not talk about the agencies, but what if a disgruntled employee goes and posts something on social media trying to malign the reputation, or someone is a competitor, like we said, there is corporate espionage happening, it's real life. In such kind of situation, what would be the first port of action if you called in?
So, I mean, at the moment, social media actually in my Bollywood industry is basically used to troll. So that's the impact which is happening. But if somebody, so today social media is like a wildfire, and your news, if it is a bad news, then it flows about 76% as per the survey. The impact which it has on the company is completely phenomenal. What difference we have seen at this point of time, and I did face that in my company. One of the examples I can give you is about Twitter. All right, so Elon Musk and Twitter deal was happening. There's this guy who's been thrown out of the company, as Ashish said, that when you sack the wrong employee at certain point of time, he was standing before the Congress and giving a statement whether Twitter has a lot of bots in that. Now, a similar kind of situation we also faced when somebody went to social media and was damaging the company, and we were sitting in the board to decide in a different corporate environment whether number one, we should take the action, and number two, we should get this reported. The other concern which always comes on these aspects is not only the legal action which you're taking, what impact it will have on your stocks or the shares in the stock market. All right. Because a bad report also means that there is a lack of governance mechanism which is there in your company. All right. So social media definitely has a damaging effect. Your first objective, and this is what we exercised when the Reliance Power IPO was coming, and I was part of that, is that there was one company which was maligning that particular IPO, and we had to, on social media, as well as there was reporting on the websites as well as international websites, and we went ahead and took a stay in Bombay High Court, and then we could also held back that. So social media today has a complete damaging effect. You need to go into the mode where you take it offensively and not defensively, so that the damage can be limited. That's my strategy.
Also, I think forensic investigators, there's a lot of things happening out there, fake profiles and all of that are being used. IPs can be traced even if they're using VPN. You can know what is the KYC that was used to create a particular ID. So there's a lot that can be done in the segment. So it's not as if like just because someone's hiding behind a keyboard, he's impenetrable. Okay, without further ado, we have a champion, Ashish, in the house on the Bitcoin cryptocurrency. So all of you can catch him and check which one to buy, which wallet to use, which does not get attached. But for the time being, we are just going to ask him to touch upon one. See, I don't think Bitcoins and cryptos and NFTs are looked at alien things anymore. They are very much like part of our life. Dubai has legislated on it. We know that in India has one of the highest trading coins, much ahead of European Union. But in this system, we also see a lot of situations like unilateral attachment of accounts, suspense of trading, non-allowance of cashing out. As a company which is trying to not just create a culture, but fighting the mentality that has already been created, how do you recommend lawyers, including in-house counsels and as law firm lawyers, approach this topic, and what do you think are the basics required to deal with these kind of digital asset issues?
How many of you have a crypto wallet account? Please raise your hand. Raise your hand, na? Great. How many of you have made an on-chain transfer, a blockchain transfer of your crypto? I hope ED and income tax is not seeing it, right? Yeah. I mean, my income tax return is all clean. I have declared that. Up to you, man. Okay, how many of you have ever mined even a Bitcoin, Ethereum? I haven't mined, and I'm sure. Okay, so I think the first part is that being a lawyer, you need to understand the subject matter, right? Now, I mean, with all due respect to my friends in the law firm, I get so many issues and I have to approach lawyers. And if I make a blog post that I have this issue, I think 99% of the Indian law firms come to me and they say that we are expert in crypto. I ask them one question, wallet खोला है क्या? तो उस पे ही मालूम हो जाता है. So I think the first thing for any lawyer is to हलवाई को अपनी दुकान की मिठाई पहले खानी चाहिए. ठीक है? Second, I think the ability to really implement existing laws in a new technology, right? Because India would always be behind legislating and promoting new technology. We have seen this in the software boom. We have seen that in the internet boom, and we are seeing it here, right? India being the 4th largest adopter of crypto as an asset class. But India has just 2 crypto unicorns. One is us, right? And it will take another, I don't know how many years. Hopefully in this G20 meet, which India is hosting, I believe that blockchain crypto is a good agenda for them to promote. But till such time, if you want to support a company which really want to put India on a global map in the crypto space, you need to understand the shit and you need to really be able to apply existing law and legal principle to the new technologies. And what we are doing also, that since we are doing all the right thing and we believe that we are doing all the check mark in the box, we are voluntarily approaching law enforcement agencies and judicial academy and helping them understand the subject matter. In fact, if you would see my blog post, my LinkedIn, we are also promoting it that, hey, we are being investigated by a department and we ourselves are going, hey, you want to investigate us? I'll tell you how to investigate us. I'll tell you what question to ask me. Now, you could do it only when you're doing the right thing, plus you want to showcase the country as a good country for a crypto investment building standpoint. So educate the system around you, right? Make sure that they don't really treat you as alien. And most importantly is that, continue working with the government. I think what the Indian government lack is not the intent. Few people at the top have really sent very negative message about the industry, not appreciable. Because this is not a bad technology. This is not a nuclear plant. Everywhere in the world except for China or Thailand, governments have embraced it. Respect technology. Don't send that negativity. So except for those, other people are genuinely curious. They genuinely want to understand technology. They know कि उसमें बाहर में इतने use case आ रहे हैं. India में the best crypto layer 1 technology, Polygon, which is a competitive threat to Ethereum, was being built in India by Indians, right? And they issued, like we issue stock option to employees, they issued Matic token. Matic is the token to their employees so that they can participate in the wealth generation. Everybody was being investigated by various departments. उन्होंने कहा भैया मुझे करना ही नहीं है यहाँ पे. They totally wound up and went out, right? So, why do we have to create that ecosystem? People are interested, they are curious, there are ways and means to fulfill your curiosity, get information. There's an easy way and a threatening way, right? If my dad wants to know कि बेटा स्कूल में क्या किया आज, कोई बदमाशी की है, तो एक तो प्यार से पूछ सकते हैं और एक डंडा मार के पूछ सकते हैं, ठीक है? So it all depends that how you want to do parenting of this new baby called as blockchain, Web3 and crypto. I think intent is there. India will wait and watch maybe 3, 4, 5 years. Things will grow. But by that point of time, most of the brains, wealth creation would have gone outside of India. Yeah.
And I think the second most surprising thing is that after Singapore, we are the only country which has used chain technology to trace cryptos and attach it and are able to repatriate it back into the country.
And also just to stick to the topic also, crypto investigation won't take more than 1 minute. This is not a Hawa, it is a new technology. I know it promotes anonymity. Your blockchain, wallet and all only have a 64 string address. It is not associated, but it's all been traded on the World Wide Web, right? There are always some sort of footprints available on internet, which could be be or on technology, on your mobile phone, on server, which could be used by law enforcement agency to go to the culprit. And I think over last 2-3 years, worldwide, including India, have successfully investigated and arrested the people who have tried to hide behind an anonymous kind of a wallet. And I think it's equally important for the government to also invest in these technology. अब आपने एयरपोर्ट बना दिया है, एयरक्राफ्ट आ रहे हैं, लेकिन आपको सिक्योरिटी की भी तो करनी टेक्नोलॉजी. अब 30% टैक्स काट रहे हो विदाउट एनी ऑफसेट, 1% TDS कर रहे हो, वो 30% टैक्स कम से कम इन्वेस्टिगेटिव टूल्स में लगा दो. Right? To build,
Hyderabad CCS, Bangalore, and Thane Cyber Cell listening very carefully to that.
But they don't have the tools to investigate, my dear friend. I mean, you sit on the other side of the table. I sit on this side of the table. I have to shit in my pants when I have to sit in front of them, right? I mean, they cry foul कि मुझे पता ही नहीं कैसे करना investigate. मेरे पास tools ही नहीं है. मैं government से मांगू या पैसे नहीं मिलते. 30% tax I am paying without any loss offset. Where is that 30% tax going? Invest to build ecosystem, right?
No, absolutely.
I just want to add on the fraud side of it. I mean, see what this cryptocurrency, all the chaos. So there's a company Coinbase where I'm a shareholder. It's a listed company in New York. So this is one of the technologies which has been coming. All right. Now, as a jurisdiction, you have to either embrace it. And the anonymity part, what he expressed, is about peer-to-peer. So it's a P2P technology. So others cannot, but there are footprints which are available. The third aspect which is coming out is more from the fraud side of it. So today, if you get an opportunity, go to Google and say BSQ. So BSQ basically is a crypto exchange facility where you're getting to buy or trade. And that is basically a fraud. And if you also see, there are certain news on Times of India where total amount of 1,000 crore by way of fraud has been gone because of this crypto fraud which is happening. So it's just coming to this regulatory authority from the mentality that this is all fraud, which is not there because it's a currency at the moment which is being recognized. Volatility is also one of the factor which the government is keeping in mind that, whether it will affect my currency and all of that. But while the world is adopting, I think gradually we are moving towards that, accepting cryptocurrency also as an alternate currency. That's what is there. And on the fraud side of it, be very cautious about it. There are some listed good companies which you should deal with when you're dealing with cryptocurrency. That's message.
So, whenever you meet a crypto enthusiast, never say it's a cryptocurrency. Okay? They will not treat you with a coffee. Say it's a crypto asset.
Well, I don't think there's much to say after hearing the speakers. But just to put things into perspective, one of the biggest crypto wallet fraud in India was discovered in Rajsamand in Rajasthan, 3 hours away from Jodhpur, where 400 crores have been dumped into a teacher's account. And that teacher was taken to the branch saying that, come, we'll open a loan account for you. And there was an auto disbursement that the moment it hits 2 lakhs, the money used to go out. So UPI money, P2P money, all of this. So we are living in the middle of some things, and I don't think the time is there to look away anymore.
It's officially happening. I mean, when you go to this crypto, you have your UPI number, you have IMPS, you can also have this transfer from your bank account. The only point is that sometimes bank will come back to you, they will block your account. You'll have to justify that transaction saying that this was personally done by me. They are also gradually recognizing it, but that's where we are heading.
Okay. And if the banks don't do it, then you can come to lawyers. We'll move the writ petitions in High Court, make some money on this side and get the results. That's all. But yeah, very quickly, we'll just take 2 questions before I get the second shit. Okay, Akriti? Sorry. Yeah. Shrivals, I can already see that hand up in the air.
No, such interesting discussions demand some good questions for you. So 2 things. First, I think from my experience and what Ashish also has done so many instances, one of the important takeaways apart from what he said is that you need to have a very good network of criminal lawyers whenever you're doing investigation agency. A good law firm, a senior counsel, and a trial court lawyer in the area of jurisdiction of the company. So that's an added point to be taken. The query I have is, how good are directors and liabilities officers' insurance policies to be taken by corporates? How effective are those? 1, in normal instances, and 2, in terms of big time frauds like Yes Bank, SDL, the big ones, how they happen. So that thought would be very good for the entire audience.
I mean, look, I think I'm not too sure how many of these D&O policies which have been refused by the insurance company have been contested, right? But I believe that if you are seeking the indemnification from the indemnitor, you have to pass on the control of the case, right? And then you have to open up your skeleton before that. So I think if it comes to me, we do have D&O policy. It's more of a tick in the box, but I would still want to take full control of the issue and all, depending upon how much money is at stake. Or मेरे को लगता नहीं कि if it goes into multiple hundreds crores, even the D&O policy would want to play nice to you. So practically, it just, my experience is tick in the box, right? Just to give comfort to independent directors and stuff like that. That's it.
Obviously, it doesn't take care
It's
of the punishment part of it.
more of a
but-
paper tiger. Yeah.
Yeah, but that said, I think there are also some good stories around it. There are DLO policies out there which will let you appoint your law firms. They will make sure that they don't interfere in the decision making or the hiring of the counsels for that matter. Cost will always remain a concern. So there will be policies which will say, okay, we allow only 2 lawyers to attend or 3 lawyers to attend. What you need to be very careful about, and what happens in typical scenario, you have multiple directors who come into the same play. So look at an ILFS, look at Cox and King, sort of the bigger ones. So when you have multiple directors and let's say 3 of them have gone to one law firm, 2 have gone to another law firm, and they want to run it differently, there are times when at one point of time in the trial, they'll say, okay, consolidate, or we want another specific counsel. Push back. It's not unknown of, there's always an attempt. One real important thing which we have seen in this over a period of time, make sure that your agreement conflict clauses are very clear. Because we have seen DLO policies where last minute payouts have been blocked because they deem that there has been some issue of a conflict at particular stage. But otherwise payouts are happening. Cost is obviously an issue, but payouts are happening. At the same time, they would want to interfere only if you let them interfere. After a point of time, you can go to the reporting mechanism rather than the approval mechanism. It also depends a lot on your lawyers, how they push back. Anyone else has any questions on this?
Yeah, my question is, are we done?
Thank you so much, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure.